Commander TV is heading to southern Africa, where white colonizers were expelled 30 years ago, and where a whole generation of free people has grown up. This is where huge diamonds were mined, which today shine in the most expensive jewelry in the world. Gold and platinum were also taken from here. Then rare elements were found here, which are essential, the creation of modern electric vehicles. So with such incredible resources in independent Africa, how do you manage to live in such poverty? Africa is a dream, where you walk on golden sands and diamonds are all around. Lost among the stones. Reach out your hand and they are yours. You will become fabulously rich. You will make it to the very top. Thousands of people from all over the world came here chasing this dream. Some managed to make a fortune here and rise to prominence. The rest just vanished in these sands.
A beautiful country. Super duper cool, beautiful. Right, indeed. Cool.
This is Ron, former Special Forces soldier of SA Army. And this is Andre, also a former soldier, our guides through southern Africa.
The northwest province of South Africa. It's one of the smaller provinces. Like I mentioned, it's mostly mining, the main core of the whole.
We are in the northwestern province of South Africa. Here, people mainly earn money from the mines. There's gold here, and closer to Namibia, there are diamonds. Farmers raise livestock, and on those same plots, they dig.
How is that?
Yes, yes. In South Africa, a person can get a license to mine for minerals. In other countries, everything belongs to the governments. Farmers here are extraordinarily wealthy, but they live very reclusively.
Because they have diamonds.
Diamonds, and also because they are good farmers.
The first diamond here was found by a 15-year-old boy from a family of white farmers. It was in 1866. The stone was lying on the bank of the Orange River. The river washed diamonds out of volcanic rocks and carried them to the ocean. When news of the find spread, farmers abandoned their farms and set off in search of the sparkling stones. Then, not far from here in Kimberley, they found the famous kimberlite, diamond pipes, and it all took off. In South Africa, they found diamond deposits. There have never been so many of them. In just a few years, they dug up more than in India, throughout all time. They are still being found today.
But I can tell you now, I know some guys.
Some of my acquaintances from these parts had a lucky day, and they found a diamond weighing a ton of carats. And that provided for their family for a lifetime.
So they just found them in the sand.
In the gravel 2 meters underground. But how much money do you need to spend to find it?
Thanks to these mines, the entire Western world thrived. They built South Africa itself. From the gold miners' settlement, Johannesburg emerged. Universities were being established because the mines needed specialists. To transport the raw materials, roads and bridges were needed. They built them up. Everything to extract these riches from beneath the ground. But if you are so rich, why do you look so poor? These towns were built around the mines or near large farms. Today they look unprosperous. The pandemic dragged the mines down, and they took everything around them with them. The streets are sparsely populated. The only activity is at the bank branches.
End of the month and it's a Friday.
The end of the month, and today is Friday. So they came for their salaries. Yes, for their salaries and far more benefits. That's why the ANC is still in power. Because they pay them benefits every month. How much do they get? It depends on how many children they have. They have 3 to 4 children to get more. I think they get paid around 1,200 rand per month. Yes. A little. Well, let's say around $100 American a month. Plus, there are side jobs here and there. It's hard to understand. Yes, you have rich land, but it doesn't belong to you. You have something like minerals, but they don't belong to you. and you have something yours, but you don't have the money to develop it, that's misfortune. Land is generally owned by white farmers.
It turns up and you focus resource first, because it doesn't mean that the fact that you happen to...
The mere fact of owning natural resources doesn't mean that ordinary people will benefit from it in any way. This is called the resource curse. Because there are land rights that go back centuries, and there are international companies that are accountable to their shareholders, typically these are pension funds from wealthy countries, and their goal is maximum profit.
Raymond Durkheim studied the resources of the African continent for decades. He's a geophysicist, an author, hundreds of scientific works. We're talking about why underground riches attract people. In South Africa, among the platinum mines, there are vast areas of slums. People go there hoping to find work in the mine, or maybe get a job in a store, a car repair shop, a diner, or a hair salon. The mines themselves, they attract people, and here these wild images arise. In the midst of the Golden Mountains, endless rows of slums. In these lands, 90% of the world's platinum reserves and a lot of gold. But affordable housing looks like this. People live in huts like these in South Africa, 1 million families.
This is where it all begins. They buy a piece of land and start putting up these zinc things. It's metal, zinc from the roofs. They put up a zinc house. And it started. Too many people, and they keep coming. More and more. And if they come onto your land and start building there, good luck getting them out.
It's not necessary. Unemployed? Miners can live here. By law, if they don't settle in the dormitory near the mine, they're entitled to a housing allowance. And they often use it to build a zinc shack. Even if they get a raise, many prefer to buy a satellite dish and continue living in the slums. This is an enchanted place there. This charm of gold and diamonds, people's eyes light up, and it still has that effect. You understand that you just dug this up. There, in one spot, I dug up a diamond, a huge diamond. You can also find gold, and it's complicated, too. These are people who still live as if enchanted by the allure of diamonds and gold, by incredible wealth. And it's strange because you see all around some poor villages, abandoned buildings, some shacks, God knows what. You constantly live a bit in your imagination because you picture another life, what it could be like. Oh my God, what a mess.
They just don't care.
They throw trash everywhere.
And the wind carries it all away.
No one really knows how the profits of mining companies are distributed. This data is classified. By their own reports, the companies pay local communities in South Africa $125 million a year, but they earn hundreds of times more. Companies are dragging entire regions along with them, but it's a dead grip because outsiders won't dare to come here.
I guess generally mines are...
Mining companies generally agree that they provide local jobs, schools, and hospitals. But you take on the responsibility for an entire region and become its owner. And this, in turn, makes the region less attractive to investors. Investors would like to avoid such social responsibility.
Mines are developing everything around them. They are developing bridges, universities, they are lifting the country up, but they are doing it for themselves, for the mines. In other words, mines give rise to more mines. You have this resource dependency, and it just keeps getting worse. Even though it seems like you're developing as a resource country, and it's not a dead end, but it's close. Incredible places. Here, the largest diamond in human history was found. Here, in the search for gold, they dug the deepest mine on our planet, 4 kilometers deep. But this hasn't made the South Africans themselves richer. 63% of citizens live in poverty, and on average, incomes are even lower than they were 10 years ago. Well, you missed the diamond and gold rush, but the 21st century gives Africa another one, a huge opportunity that cannot be missed. At the beginning of this century, Europe and then China announced plans for a green transition. They will give up burning coal, oil, and gas for clean energy, energy from the sun, wind, and tides. But for that, a lot of copper will be needed, as well as cobalt, lithium, and much more. And all of this is in Africa, and sometimes only in Africa.
To achieve the green transition to renewable energy sources, rare and unusual minerals will be needed. For the creation of wind turbines, components of solar panels. These are rare earth elements. Africa has large reserves of such minerals, at least because geological exploration was weak here.
Here it is, the chance to escape poverty. And it seems like everything is there, power, opportunities. Will it work this time? We're heading to Namibia for the answer, which was one of the first to understand the grand opportunities that the green transition opens up. But this map shows that there aren't that many villages around. Just, nothing. In the middle, nothing. You mean in Namibia? Namibia has only 3 million people. And this country should become not just a regional, but a global leader in green energy. This is what the president of Namibia, Hage Geingob, said. He constantly convinced the leadership of the European Union, and Europe got involved. Investment plans have been drawn up for 10 billion euros. In general, at least one more Dubai was supposed to grow here.
There are still plenty of baby animals here. Leopards, snakes, scorpions. And the weather keeps changing all the time. During the day, it's terrible heat. And at night, it's freezing cold. Less than zero easy.
Plenty in the sand, scorpions. But who was stopped by that? 100 years ago, during the diamond rush, there was no shortage of newcomers. To stop the wild harvesting, they created a restricted zone right behind the road. You still can't get in there, although almost all the precious stones have been taken out of there.
There are certain areas where entry is prohibited. Is it because they are privately owned?
Due to diamonds.
The territory is controlled by the state and companies.
No roads, no access.
You can drive there in an off-road vehicle.
Is that restricted area really being guarded?
They are keeping an eye on it. But still, it's a very vast area.
On the left, there are abandoned houses and entire towns. They were built solidly. People thought that diamond mining would last a long time. There is also a completely unrealistic railway that is covered with sand. They say that a train sometimes passes along it, but we have never seen one. When the diamonds ran out, it was as if these cities had their oxygen cut off. Life in them came to a halt, and today we only see their dried up shells.
Look over there on the left. There's also an old mine. Now it's abandoned and looks like a haunted house.
Like a ghost house.
And over there, there's a water tank.
There's also a train station there.
And a train station.
Yes, that's how it was done at first. They set up the mine and built a railway to it. So the water was probably for the steam locomotives that used to go back and forth.
That was running.
The names of the stations remind us that Namibia was a German colony in the early 20th century. Here we have Luderitz, the hope of the green economy. A small port with a population of 17,000 people. A patch of land inhabited by people. Further ahead, it's completely desolate. For 400 kilometers ahead, not a single living soul. On the left, the ocean. On the right, the desert. And the terrifying, piercing wind that makes it cold even during the day. A cursed place, dangerous shores. There's always fog and strong ocean currents. Perfect for shipwrecks. and no one will come to help. The nearest ports are far away. This ship was washed ashore just recently, in 2008. There are still thousands of shipwrecks around. This is the Skeleton Coast. They say about these places, God created this land when he was angry. In the 21st century, it turned out that God's anger can be monetized.
Oh, you should see our Maritime Museum.
We're talking to Phil Balhau, the mayor of Luderitz, about how lucky Namibia is. Instead of extracting minerals from the ground, it will trade in air, wind and solar energy. And there's plenty of that in Luderitz.
We are in third place in the world for the potential of wind and solar energy development.
And what are the other two?
The Himalayas, which is impossible.
The Himalayas, where it's impossible to build anything. And the second place is Chile. Chile is doing something, but there's some political instability that gets in the way.
And now imagine that this sleepy little town is turning into a global energy hub. All around, there are wind turbines and solar panels. Here's the desalination plant. There are huge pipelines here. A green ammonia production plant. The port will need to be expanded to accommodate larger vessels. And what a great touch. Instead of going around Africa from the east and passing through the Gulf of Aden, where the Houthis are launching rockets, tankers will head to Europe along the western coast of Africa. A huge plus for safety.
I think this will be a revolution. The boom in maritime transport, air travel, huge equipment supplies, and road transport. The effect will be felt everywhere, throughout Namibia.
The project has a solid sponsor, Germany. In Berlin, they called this direction strategic. Of course, Namibia will free Europe from its dependence on Russian gas. We still need to find about 10 billion euros. That's almost the entire GDP of Namibia. And while the strategists were drawing up numbers and diagrams, suddenly the new reality reminded us of itself. We are in independent Africa. The leaders of the Nama and Herero tribes opposed the project. They reminded Germany that when it was in charge here in 1904, it committed genocide, brutally suppressing the uprising of these tribes, driving them into the desert to certain death, while others were sent to concentration camps. The first concentration camps of the 20th century. And as luck would have it, one of them was right in Luderitz, on the island of Kule, where the renovation is planned. For the Green Project,
several thousand people died from hard labor and starvation. And it was this piercing wind that they essentially built this city with. The prisoners built the railway, they built the mines, and now there's not even a trace of the camps left because the bodies were thrown into the ocean where they were eaten by sharks. For many decades, this story didn't interest anyone. The camp fell apart on its own. Only stones are left. Then they set up a campsite in its place. People were grilling barbecues, setting up toilets on the bones. In general, that's how it all went. Until recently.
But in 2018, the European Union tightened the regulations for the transition to green energy. And something had to be done to comply with these regulations. It might have just been a coincidence, but in the same year, Germany acknowledged that it had committed genocide. Tribes, Nama and Herero, it promised the country compensation of 1 billion euros. German companies started flocking to Namibia. Handshakes, contracts. It seemed like the past was behind us. Onward to green energy. But that wasn't the case. Representatives of the tribes stated that no one had entered into negotiations with them. They are not satisfied with the amount of compensation, and in general, they are against the construction on Shark Island. And then other details emerged. It turned out that the country's president made a choice of an international partner for the Hyphen Energy Consortium project. Local authorities had already made agreements with other companies, and now those agreements were going up in smoke with local authorities. And they had already agreed with other well-known companies on favorable terms, and now these agreements were flying upside down. The confusion was expressed by none other than the current mayor, Phil Balhau. At that time, he was in the opposition. Are you still surprised today?
In all honesty, yes.
Honestly, yes.
We
We had meetings with respected companies that are working on green hydrogen projects all over the world. And when we were informed that the company Hyphen had won, it was a shock for us. We never met with them, and they had no obvious experience in this field. Then we had a meeting with Hyphen and saw that they are part of our community. But before that, we had our own calculations on who would become the winner and what support we would get from them. Unfortunately, we don't expect that from Hyphen. But we are doing what we can and working closely with Hyphen.
So, a global project that could have changed the fate of Namibia and the entire world was, for unclear reasons, given to a company that does not even have practical experience. And how was it supposed to attract investments of 10 billion? That's very strange. Or was it originally a fantasy to attract foreign money? President Hage Geingob will no longer be able to answer these questions. He died in February 2024, and it turned out that there are no other such enthusiasts for the green project in Namibia. The green transition is running out of steam, construction projects are slowing down. The agencies can't agree on the laws. Officials are fighting for control over foreign investments. That don't even exist yet. It was planned that in 2030, Europe would buy hundreds of thousands of tons of green ammonia from Namibia. In reality, Namibia hasn't produced a single kilogram so far. People are envisioning how in 10 years, this place will simply be a global hub for green energy. We will have millions, billions, there will be jobs here. I doubt that will happen. The scope is enormous. Billions, tens of billions of dollars are planned. But the way it's actually moving suggests it could turn into a giant breakup. I bought money, and this year something was supposed to start for them. Some construction, but there's nothing. It's all just talk again. But in the sand, yeah, it will happen. It will happen. Whenever it happens, the deadlines are already passing. Still nothing? No. Even if the construction of the century had taken place, it probably would have passed by the local residents. The green project needs engineers and chemical technologists. Specialized organizations in Namibia have stated that there are no such specialists in the country, and investors will likely bring in their own personnel. Work is really needed here. In Namibia, 400,000 people live in slums, including in Lodritz. At a slum bar with a popular name around here, AK-47, we are getting to know Michael. His family lived in a village in northern Namibia, but there's a drought there, farmers are going bankrupt, and the family moved here.
Find job? No, there's no permanent job, none at all. Sometimes I manage to pick up some odd jobs at the waterworks or a shipping company. They call, they summon if they have something. No, there isn't.
What do
Odd jobs?
What kind of work is that?
When the ships come in and dock for loading, we load them up and then they leave. Where do you get water? Do you have to pay for water? You need to pay with a card. Buy a card. How much do you have to pay? 300? But you can put in as much as you want. At least 10 Namibian dollars. How long have you been living here? He's been here for 30 years.
30? 30 years here. How old were you when you came here?
He's an old man.
Has this place changed over this time?
Nothing changes here. It's always been like this.
With this new green hydrogen project, do you have hope of finding a job?
We've heard about it. Maybe something will come out of it later.
What is your profession?
I can work as a welder.
Yes, I'll tell you.
One of the main challenges for Africa has been the explosive population growth. In the 1960s, the population of South Africa tripled, and in other countries, it grew even more. And one of the consequences of colonialism and apartheid is the low level of mass education. And at the large mines that produce the bulk of the raw materials, the equipment is very complex. And it's unlikely that a lot of unemployed youth will be able to find jobs there.
Does anyone city officials come see you?
No.
Never once?
No.
What are flags?
Are flags of political parties?
Do you come here to vote?
Yes.
Who for?
SWAPO.
And why for SWAPO?
It's the ruling party, and I prefer them.
At this moment, we receive information from our agent in the slums that it's time to stop filming. It's dangerous to stay here longer. What are you doing? How did you end up here? Oh.
Well, take a look. So he says how...
He's friendly, I'm friendly. And before waking up those who are not friendly, it's good that they woke up. You'll carefully say when it will already be. It's already here. It has already arrived. It won't be a leaf anymore. And George, this was reaching him.
For these people, history always goes in circles. Grandiose construction projects are starting nearby, tapping into unprecedented resources. Someone comes, takes the profit, and leaves. It was the same 100 years ago when the amazing town of Kolmanskop emerged in these parts. Today, it's a ghost town 10 kilometers from Ludwitz. It was built in the desert by white settlers, diamond miners. It's an amazing story about how a mine gave birth to an entire city and then killed it. It was probably the most brilliant city in all of Africa. Extravagant, magical, unimaginable. Even its ruins look majestic today. The first diamond was found here in 1908. By chance, on the railroad ties. And just a few years later, they were mining 1 million carats of diamonds a year here. That's 12% of the world's production. The city in the sands appeared instantly. Just a moment ago, there was no one here, and now there are already 1,500 residents. They brought everything they could from the civilized world to the remote desert. There was electricity, streetlights here. They were almost nowhere else in the world. The first X-ray machine in the southern hemisphere. It was needed to scan hired workers. Did they swallow any diamonds at work to steal them? There was a bowling alley, there was a casino. It was specially built in Germany. They loaded it onto a ship, brought it here, and assembled it again. There wasn't even water here. It had to be brought in from South Africa. It's a bit pricey, but not for the diamond miners. They made ice for entertainment from this water. The city had no shortage of entertainment. Stars from the opera scene in Europe came here. Diamonds could buy absolutely anything. Fragmented memories of that life remain, but they leave a completely crazy impression. Parties with champagne and caviar would stretch on for several days. The police kept order on camels, and one family got themselves a pet ostrich, which they harnessed to a cart. Around Christmas, he was pulling a sled instead of a reindeer. Many wanted to touch such a life. Ron's ancestors, our guide from South Africa, also took part in a similar frenzy, just not in diamonds, but in gold.
Beautiful place, I love it. Beautiful country. I remembered as a boy.
When I was 4 or 5 years old, I came here with my parents. I remember being told about diamonds, about the people who came here in search of wealth. My family is from Scotland, and I have ancestors from Germany. My great-great-grandfather was involved in gold mining. He bought gold from the prospectors, melted it down, made gold jewelry, and sold it in Johannesburg.
In what years was that?
Around the 1830s.
But then you no longer dealt with gold.
No. My grandfather took up farming while my other grandfather from the German side worked in the police. so we no longer touch the mines.
A fortune was made here on the first, most accessible diamonds. Then the stones became less and less common, and their extraction became hard work. And finally, hundreds of kilometers from here, in South Africa, they found a richer deposit, and that was a decisive blow. The last family left Kolmanskop in the early 1950s. You can imagine the feelings people had when leaving a city where some had spent their entire lives. The Diamond City with its incredible stories has faded into the past. In Namibia, only this sand and these walls remain. Now they're planning to build another city not far from here, but this time for the participants of the hydrogen project. A cursed place. If something goes wrong with this hydrogen project, we'll have two ghost towns in the desert. Ghostly counterparts. Monuments to single industry towns, built in the name of some human idea. That didn't pan out. Yeah, the idea of pulling money out of thin air was a good one. Probably even too good. That's why many wanted to take part in it. The cost of independence. Every group has a voice, and that voice needs to be heard. In general, everything is stuck in approvals. But Namibia has more than just sun and wind. It has lithium, which is absolutely essential for battery production. And we're heading north to the village of Uis, where they extract lithium ore. This is the gold of the 21st century. How will the locals manage it? On the road, you increasingly see flags of China and trucks with hieroglyphs. China has firmly established itself in Africa. He produces electric cars, invests in wind energy, and he really needs African resources. Once, in the 60s, when China was poor, it was an ally of Africans in the anti-imperialist struggle. Now, China has become wealthy. It's a bit of an empire itself, and it operates on a scale that the West can only dream of. Because behind Chinese businesses stands the state, and there's no turning back for them.
In the last 20 years, China has become a major player. China has shaken up the entire industry. It turned out that business can be done differently. In the past, Western corporations operated to maximize profits, and Chinese companies, including state-owned ones, were driven not so much by the desire for profit, but by the need to ensure a steady supply of strategic raw materials and to expand China's influence over the rest of the world. And that's perfectly legal. That's what many nations and empires have done in the past. This is neither surprising nor shocking. Our world has simply changed like that.
Here we are passing the Husap uranium mine. A great example. A Chinese company bought it in 2012. And since then, the Chinese have been continuously developing it. The plan is to make it the second largest uranium mine in the world. The path out of poverty is never instant. China was rising in the late 50s, and they worked there like, I don't know, crazy people for pennies for the rest of the world. China was still producing, while these guys are sitting on raw materials that just disappear, and nothing is left. It's such a vicious circle, and this vicious circle is connected with the fact that you have a resource curse, which, on the one hand, you are rich, on the other hand, you give away for next to nothing, and you have nothing left. But why actually for next to nothing? Because the higher the degree of processing, the higher the profit margin. And they extract raw materials from Africa, the cheapest kind. But in Uise, there was a truly fairy tale story. They practically gave away an entire lithium mine to foreigners for free. And here's how it happened.
It's not easy being a local hero in a small community. Yes, gentlemen, this is the UIS. We have large reserves here. Tin, tantalum. They recently found lithium.
Jimmy, an activist from the Wiz settlement. There are many local miners here in the area who collect minerals on community land. But in 2022, outsiders showed up here.
We went to our usual spot to mine lithium, and out of nowhere, 10 Chinese, and they started asking us what we were doing here. We said we're doing artisanal mining. They said, get out of here, or we'll call the police. The Chinese claimed that they bought all this land from a local chief for a lot of money. They called the police and forced us to leave.
How much lithium did you collect? What did they do with the bags of lithium that you had already collected?
They ripped open the bags and scattered everything around. Heartless people. They don't know how to share. This is a vast area where minerals were collected by miners, individuals. These are the people who own this land. And you chase them away like dogs.
What happened next? Did you go back there afterwards?
I didn't go there anymore.
So how do you make a living now?
I work as a water carrier. There aren't many sources around here. I collect water from the pumps and deliver it to people. I don't make much money. It's not enough to live on.
There is a law in Namibia. Even if a company has obtained a license for development, it must get the landowner's consent. In this case, the traditional leader of the local community. The residents started to figure out who had come here. And it turned out to be the Chinese company Sinfan Investment. And the company had a document, a consent signed by the local chief.
They didn't find lithium there yesterday. Our elders were the ones who mined there. And then these companies with exploration licenses came along. All these things that the locals had no idea about.
The Namibian newspaper found out how the Chinese company ended up here. There is a loophole in the law that allows local artisans to engage in small-scale fishing. And so one Namibian company registered 10 plots for manual fishing. I paid $160 for this. And now pay attention. The head of this company turns out to be the cousin of the advisor to the Ministry of Natural Resources. The advisor's brother sells a stake in the company to the Chinese, and they start not just small-scale, but quite industrial lithium mining there. The Chinese paid $1 million for a stake in the company. Out of that, $300,000 went directly to the advisor's brother. But that money is gone. The state ended up with its $160. And so from this mine, in the UIS area, the Chinese company exported 55,000 tons of lithium raw materials worth tens of millions of dollars. The raw materials went across the border. What could the local chief do in this situation? At the very least, demand compensation for environmental damage, or ensure that locals are hired for jobs. But as the residents of the UIS settlement found out, he just signed the agreement in exchange for a computer, 12 plastic chairs, and 1 hamburger. We were unable to get in touch with representatives of Sinfan. Earlier, they reported through the newspapers that no officials were bribed and that lithium was extracted to investigate its quality. The advisor to the ministry resigned, rejected the accusations, and the local chief denied that he was bribed with a hamburger. But he admitted that the chairs and the computer were given to the community. In March 2023, local residents held a demonstration against the Chinese company. Francisco Tanises, who lives in the Wiz settlement, says that the local chief sold out their interests. She speaks a rather rare language called Kuko, with its characteristic clicking and popping sounds.
When the Andrada Mining Company came here, at least they met with us and told us what they would be doing, even if they lied about there being jobs. And then the Sinfon Company came. They didn't meet with any of us, only with the chief. And he signed everything, and we didn't know. The chief sold us out. Look at who Sinfan has hired. They hired individuals from other regions who now come to this area and choose to rent homes. They don't care about nature, indeed. They don't care that in those places are the graves of our relatives. 2 daughters of my grandmother are buried there, where the mine is. We don't know what's happening there right now. We can't get there.
In November 2024, the Ministry of Natural Resources showed up at the district for an inspection and confirmed that the company Sinfen is illegally mining lithium. The ministry initiated a police investigation, but the company hasn't gone anywhere. In 1923, the ministry already tried to revoke its license. It didn't work out. Sinfen filed a lawsuit and won. So the ministry conducted an investigation, but the company continued its mining. You can say anything about the white colonizers, but at least they built something in UIS. The tin mine. The primary processing workshop, where local artisans could bring their finds and earn more. This was in recent years. Apartheid. Back then, instead of shantytowns, they built little houses like these, and it seems that cars were bought here, judging by the remains that are now sitting in the yards. Compared to today's times, everything looked pretty good, one of the village elders told us. He refused to give his name.
I don't want to pit the governments of Namibia and China against each other, but let me explain what happened. There's nothing good about Sinfen's arrival in our area. In the past, companies at least provided jobs for the youth. Drivers, for example. I got a job like that when I was young.
Was it better 20, 30 years ago?
Yes. Previously, there was a primary processing plant where mined ore could be brought. And locals worked there too. Of course, life was better back then. Not like it is now. People just extract resources and leave. No benefit to the community or the country. Nothing is left. Across Africa, the Chinese are offering scholarships to study in China. They have good mining institutes. If you go to Addis Ababa, there's the headquarters of the Organization of African Unity, and it was built by the Chinese. Are you going to Nairobi? The highway to the city was also built by the Chinese. Again, in Addis Ababa, they built the monorail. They have the goal of supporting countries in their development. Recently, we published a book about the exploration of Africa's riches. There's a whole chapter about China. The conclusion is that Chinese companies are neither better nor worse than those that were here before them. There are also outstanding successful examples, and shocking examples of bad practices.
We'd like to see the local chief of traditional...
Can I talk to the traditional chief? Do you see that building over there? The first in line, at the top.
That one, that's
Brown. Yes, Brown. Is this his office?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. We're going there. This guy was like, what the heck? 2 Russians are knocking on the door.
Yeah, right.
Here is office of local chief.
Thanks.
We would like to see the leader of local traditional administration.
Oh, he is...
He should pop in right now. Here is his deputy. To be honest, I was actually planning to leave. And when will he be back? The chief is sick, but you can talk to her. This is our secretary.
I would like to hear first what the purpose of your visit is.
We're filming about local communities, about the mines, how it affects the locals, and the green transition of new technology.
We all have different tasks here, and the manager assigns specific and qualified people who are authorized to answer such questions.
All right. If this is beyond your expertise, then we'll pass the microphone back. I'm sorry to hear that the manager is unwell. My best wishes to the manager and the entire community. Africa is independent and rich. Why is there this wealth? Is it slipping through our fingers again? Because instead of white colonizers, it's now being plundered by its own It turns out that the laws give significant rights to local communities. And who knew about this? Those who knew got rich. What happened in the village of Wuis explains why in Namibia, a country with a middle income level, 400,000 people live on $2 a day, while 3,000 or 300 people are dollar millionaires. Namibia is fabulously rich. It has been independent for 30 years. But why hasn't it achieved the prosperity it could have expected?
We saw a large group of so-called elites with political connections who were making huge profits but weren't sharing with anyone at the lower levels. Maybe we took a wrong turn here. But I think we've learned a lot of lessons over the past 34 years. Many people want change. Recently, we established a sovereign wealth fund that should help those who have been left behind. So our democracy is becoming more mature.
The paradox of independent Africa is that it has to rely on former imperialists, hoping that they will suddenly shed their habits and start showing awareness. That's unlikely because they'll be immediately devoured by less conscious competitors.
Africans need to achieve a fair distribution. Profits. We often see that the lives of local people only worsen because of extraction. Rivers are polluted, the fishing industry is destroyed, the land is ruined. Crime and prostitution are coming to these countries. We need proper management of extraction. Proper management should be implemented not just in African countries. This needs to be addressed at the international level.
It's amazing how the system reproduces itself even in the 21st century. Independent Africa is going in circles just like during the Gold and Diamond Rush. Resources are given away for next to nothing. Springs dominate people's lives. Poverty breeds new poverty. The power of money paralyzes and corrodes the government. And then the government starts to pay attention to the main value, the land. And it is usually still in the hands of white farmers. But this is a separate, huge topic. And we'll talk about this in another story.